going.
Yeah, and it's really important for both the Coxes here to keep switched on and make sure they know that the race can start at any minute, so they have to be ready for it when it comes.
Okay.
Both crews, get ready.
Okay, release.
Ready for the start, but the arm still up of Sophie Schapter. And Matthew Pinsent will wait for that to go down.
Their hand is down.
Cambridge, Oxford, attention. Go!
Attention, go is the very simple signal that starts the boat race, the 73rd women's boat race, and keeping a keen eye on the starts here because Oxford in practice got a little bit wrong and had to work on it, deconstruct the start and try again yesterday, and they seem to have got it okay there. Now, the stations mean that Oxford will have the initial slight advantage around Craven Cottage of about a quarter of a length, so they need to be up on Cambridge in the early stages of the race, because then Cambridge will get the advantage of the big Surrey bend. But Cambridge look to be off to a powerful start here.
Yeah, Cambridge already got the little bit more length going. I mean, both crews at full tilt, really clean out the start, but already a lot of length showing in that Cambridge crew, and the bows are creeping out.
I think Oxford looked a little bit more tentative off the start, perhaps because they struggled a little bit with their start practice yesterday, but they now seem to have got into a better rhythm, seem to be holding those couple of seats that Cambridge got in the first few strokes.
Past the hundreds, the thousands on the embankment, and you can see there the lead that Cambridge have already. This is such an experienced crew, such a strong crew. We have 4 returning blues from last year's successful Cambridge boat, and already out to half a length. Sometimes it's difficult to see in the angle as they move past the camera, but they do look to moving out to, well, a third, perhaps nearly half a length there, Cambridge, and that's worrying for Oxford, but very encouraging for Cambridge.
You can see they're already covering more distance in between the strokes. So in between the sets of puddles, that's where each stroke they're getting further and further. It looks a devastating start from Cambridge.
So there is a good look at the bend round Craven Cottage there, which will give Oxford a quarter of a length advantage or so, but that would only bring them back just about to parity at the moment. And Cambridge starting so strong. And it may be the case that Cambridge, with this powerful crew, once you get clear water between the two boats, they can choose whichever line they so desire. So that's what they're looking for at the moment.
All right, Oxford.
Oxford do look really quite relaxed there, so they look like they're taking this in their stride. You know, they've settled into a nice rhythm, but Kath, like you said, you know, it looks like that Cambridge crew just a little bit longer, getting a little bit more out of each stroke, but Oxford's certainly hanging on to this now.
They have to. They need that contact, as Andrew is saying. They've got to use this corner to stay in contact. They have to front load their race when they're up against a crew like this.
So it looks like they come out so wide here, and they do have to come out a little bit from that Middlesex bank, the northern bank there, because the Fulham reaches it sort of reaches out into the deepest water. Is actually quite far out there, and deep water is the fastest water. But there you see already that Cambridge are moving along so well, and Oxford just trying to maintain contact, but Cambridge are pulling away with almost every stroke at the moment.
There's more power, there's more length, there's more life. And again, it's for Oxford, they've just got to do what they can at this point to try and get some contact. But for them, you know, the distance per stroke, it's just not enough.
You know, I think, like has been mentioned earlier, on paper this Cambridge crew look to be a lot stronger. You just compare the stroke seats. Cambridge's stroke, Olivia Coffey, double world champion from the USA, whereas Oxford stroke, Beth Bridgman, has only been rowing a few years. You know, great athlete, basketball and athletics, but, you know, new to rowing relatively.
There's a look at Olivia Coffey in the Cambridge stroke seat with Miriam Goody-Bugatme behind, and Alice White and Barlack and Zabel and Vesselman, all with international pedigree, and Imogen Grant, great lightweight in the 2-seat, and Tricia Smith in the bow. Well, Oxford are hanging on at the moment. That's all they're doing, but it is important that they maintain just about a little bit of contact there between their bow seat and the stroke seat of Cambridge.
I think it's important to remember, and we say this all the time, that anything can happen in the boat race. You never know.
Let's head down onto the water, and Tom James is following the race down there. Such an impressive start from the light blues, Tom.
Yeah, the Cambridge crew very powerful, and you can definitely see that in the first 10-15 strokes off of the start. It was interesting, there's a little bit of tension in the umpires' lodge down here, because Oxford were very late getting up onto the start, which gave them their false start, which probably didn't help them. But to be fair to Oxford, they've got into their pattern, they've settled into their rhythm, they've not been fazed by Cambridge getting that initial lead, and they've kept a very solid pattern, so they're definitely keeping their boat speed high. just a question of how much effort has Cambridge already put in to get this early lead.
I'm just looking at the time past the mile post, and the record last year in that record time set by Cambridge, but already clear water. So Cambridge would have had the big advantage going round the Surrey Bend now, but they can choose whichever line they want anyway. Again, if Oxford just seem to be moving out a little bit wider there.
Yeah, looking at this course, it does look like Oxford are slightly further away than you might want to be from what I believe is the fastest line.
Good.
You often find the crews coming together because they're hunting for that similar water. So again, I guess she's going to want to ensure she doesn't get a wash from Cambridge, though, as Cambridge are moving ahead now.
Let's listen in to Sophie Sharpter, the Cox of the Light Blues.
Through the heels. Next stroke. Go. Heels. Heels. Heels.
It's just that technical focus, that ruthless technical focus, making sure they're putting their heels down, really getting their legs down flat.
Well, it's placid water, the Thames today, and it's clear water between Cambridge and Oxford. A good look at the lead there, and the stroking rate. Well, sometimes these stroke rates that we see are not entirely correct, and that is not correct, because that would be the kind of strokes they would go out from the start, over 40 strokes, but they'll settle down to 34, 35 or so.
Cambridge are aiming to go over at sort of at least 35. That's the kind of typical race rate that they get. And it's odd here with the stations now, because it actually looks as if Oxford have come in and crossed behind, tucked in behind, whereas Cambridge are lining up now for Hammersmith Bridge to get that particular sweet brown. They say that's the second lamppost, or the H on Hammersmith, that all the Coxes talk about and practice for months and months and months to get it right. Sophie, who went to school on this stretch of river, she knows it as well as anyone.
Well, that gap remains, and perhaps is just stretching out a little bit further. We'll take you down the Cambridge boat again. Coffey there in the stroke seat, and then Goody Bukatmi behind Alice White. Then Barlack and Zabel and Paula Wesselmann, the German, with Imogen Grant in the two-seat, and Tricia Smith in the bow seat. And again, they're moving along so well, but they have that experience, they have that continuity from last year as well. Whereas Oxford, a bit of a standing start, and things were delayed for them this year as well. They didn't have their trial eights, which helps to decide the blue boat, until January for various reasons, injury perhaps most of all. So they've been playing catch-up this year, and perhaps the race has just come a little bit too early for them.
A lot of instability, I think, when you're changing a coach and you're changing lots of things within the season as well. And stability is what you want. You've only got from September, October round to March, and you really need to hit the ground running.
Okay, guys.
The great things about the boat race now is that they have allowed spectators back onto Hammersmith Bridge. For a few years they were banned, but now they drape themselves in the cabling rather precariously, but a wonderful vantage point, and they will look down and see Cambridge trying to shoot for that second lamppost in there just from the right hand side as we look, but well, it almost seems to matter not for Cambridge at the moment, because they have so much power. They're in total control of this race.
It's been a big rebuilding process. Remember, this is actually, if they do win Cambridge, it's the first time they've won 2 in a row this century. So it's been a big rebuilding position to get to a point of this. You're blending people with World Championship experience and people who learned to row at Cambridge, and they've really got a system now that's working for them.
And it'll be interesting to see now what happens with Cambridge, because my understanding is that all of the crew members from this Cambridge boat are either graduating or planning to stop rowing to focus on their studies next year. So it might be the next year Cambridge come back with not a single returner, rather than having 4 of their blue boat back from last year.
Well, we talked about the Cambridge boat and the returning blues. There is just one returning blue, one returning from last year's race in the Oxford crew, and that's Alice Roberts in the 4-seat, just exiting picture right, and then Morgan McGovern in front of her, Sarah Kushma and Abby Killen. Beth Bridgman there in the stroke seat, and Jessica Buck there, Cox. There is McGovern, the American, one of the more experienced athletes in the boat. Then Alice Roberts, Juliette Perry, Catherine Eriksson, the president, and Rennie Koolschijn, the Dutch bow seat athlete. And we'll listen into Jessica Buck.
Finish. Finish. Good. Cutting through some poles now.
And the hard job here, Tom James, is for a Cox to try and convince her crew that there is still hope here as well, when you almost know that you're chasing a lost cause. But it's hard work for Oxford now, Tom. Tom agrees silently. He is agreeing with me. But what do you say, Zoe, as a Cox here? Because you've got to just keep digging in and keep trying to, as I say, convince your crew that there is still some hope in the race.
I think it's a really hard thing to do. You know, it's easy to Cox well when you're winning because you're having a positive experience, and when you're behind, you just have to keep as positive as you can, as honest as you can, and make sure that your crew keeps a good technical focus and doesn't try to do something individually which might throw off the whole crew.
I think you can't produce a boat race winning crew these days, you know, and turn it around in 6 months, as it were. And what you see now, at least they have got a coach in place in Oxford. They've got to build a system. At Cambridge now, they've got the boathouse. Rob Baker's built a brilliant programme, and they've built a really strong culture around both the crews, the reserve crew, the Blondie crew. Their mission statement says we're a team greater than the sum of its parts. We row for the women in front and behind, for those who came before and those who'll come after. Trust each other, keep it simple. We are CUWBC, and there's always another gear, and that's a threat to anyone they come up against at the moment.
Yes, you talked about the period of dominance that Oxford's women had, and think of the crew with Anastasia Chitty at the heart of it. They really dominated, and now Cambridge seem to be entering perhaps a period of some dominance. And we'll hand you down to Tom James once again. And Tom, a great rower yourself. I'm not sure you've been in a position where you're chasing down this sort of lead, but it's so difficult for Oxford now. But again, so impressive from Cambridge.
It is. I think look, it's really interesting over the last few minutes, the last few bends. You can see there's not so much stream on the course at the moment, and the Oxford Cox taking the inside lane to cut the corner and probably doing a sensible job to try and cut it short a little bit more so you can stay out of the wash, because the Cambridge crew, when you're that far ahead, you've got the wash coming off the boat, not just the oars. They're trying to stay out in the cleaner water. So sensible decision by the Oxford Cox, take slightly inside lane. But yeah, they've got a bit of work cut out. They're keeping it clean. The pattern's still there. They're keeping the boat speed continuous. But they've got to really dig deep and put some big pushes if they want to press back and get in the race.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out what Tom is saying there as well. When we look at the time for Cambridge today, because they were, I think, 14 seconds down on their record time of last year at the last staging post. But it's not all to do with the strength of the crews. Sometimes it's how much water is coming down off the land. So it's not such a fast river today. Perhaps it does look fairly slack out there. So it looks fairly flat water, but it doesn't look as if there's a huge stream going with them.
It does look quite benign, and like you said, Andrew, a lot of the records are about conditions rather than about the crew. You know, if you have a fantastic crew but you've got a headwind and you've got a slow stream, then you can't get a record even with the best will in the world. So unfortunately, you know, those records do tend to be a lot about conditions, and today is benign, which is nice in some ways. You know that you're not going to get hit by a big wash or a big wave, but it doesn't quite make for such exciting racing necessarily.
We've got people in both crews who have come to the sport new through rowing in colleges, come to the university squad, and the brilliant thing is both of these boat clubs are a real pathway for people to take up rowing and potentially go to the Olympics. We've got Imogen at 2 in the Cambridge crew, who's rowed for the under-23 lightweights. Taya at 4 is a fantastic talent. She actually comes from Olympic stock in that her aunt is a double Olympic champion in sailing for Spain, which is amazing Olympic experience that she talks about. But she's rowed for the under-23s as well. So huge talent in here, and that's what we're seeing is a real kind of opportunity for girls to watch the sport, get involved. We've already seen how easy it is to get in touch with the local clubs, and we have a great system of developing these athletes at both universities. So it's absolutely possible for anyone turning up at university to, you know, take up rowing and get to the absolute highest standard.
Long and strong.
There's a good view from on high there as we talked about the dirty water getting sent down now from Cambridge, and Oxford can't really avoid it now, so their task becomes even harder. Retaining that sort of deficit, they're not giving up too much more, but Cambridge will be without mercy. I think when you train to win, but you will absolutely stamp the accelerator down all the way if you can to make it as big a win as possible.
Yeah, and they're following on from last year's crew that set a record. I mean, it's all about raising the bar 1 year to the next. And they've got this momentum now. And momentum is a really powerful thing. Within a boat race, you want to have momentum on your side. But also as a squad, as a club, they've got momentum. They've got the new boathouse. They've got a really kind of settled programme under Rob Baker. And they've been really kind of outwardly reaching to schools and to universities to say, come and row with us. It's a great experience.
You talk about that continuity, and by contrast, Andy Nelder, who's the coach of Oxford, is a very, very good coach, but he was assistant in the men's programme, coached their reserve boat very, very successfully, but moving into the women's setup, and perhaps he'll start to build a programme and get that continuity.
Well, let's not forget that with the Oxford men's reserves, Andy won 7 races in a row, which was quite spectacular. And it does take a while to get into a new club, to set the new programme. And Sean Bowden, who's obviously done spectacularly well as with the Oxford men, he lost his first few races. You know, it took him a while to get into it and to understand the race and to set the new programme up at OUBC. So we might see a bit of a change coming in the next few years with Andy there.
Something of an armchair ride for Matt Pinson today. Nothing too much to trouble him, which is what an umpire wants. They don't want the blades coming together. Neutral observers might like a bit of that drama, but umpires just want it to be safe and clean. And the distance that Cambridge are clear at the moment, it is certainly clean as they head towards Barnesbridge.
Well, I think the umpire's biggest nightmare is what happened earlier, which was the swapping of stations, because the interesting thing about the boat race is, despite it being an incredibly complex race in terms of steering and umpiring, there are actually very, very few rules. And one of the things that is quite difficult to discern is what happens when those two crews cross stations, who's in the right and who's in the wrong. That's always their biggest nervous moment.
Just to again emphasise, if you're fairly new to watching the boat race, one of the rules is that you have to shoot the central span of Barnesbridge and Hammersmith, so you can't take a little shortcut on the inside. But also, again, the centre of the river is usually where the deepest water is, so the fastest water, and Cambridge already underneath Barnesbridge, and they're pulling out. They'll be getting close to the 11-length victory of last year, so that is what they'll be aiming towards.
Absolutely, and we've got to celebrate these such impressive women. They get that 5:55 train out to Ely to train most mornings, and then they're back in the labs. We've got a PhD in material science, in clinical neurosciences with Alice, in plant sciences with Miriam. Incredibly talented academic students, and then they are doing the 18 hours a week that Sophie Shapter talks about in her podcast, where she's been letting people understand a bit of what it's like to row at Cambridge.
Come in again, Tom James, and tell us what you see.
Yeah, so just down here, if you're in the Cambridge boat, then this is a fantastic position to be in, looking back, enjoying the last minute or so, particularly as the crowds around here are out in big numbers. But this last couple of minutes for the Oxford boat, keep digging in, make this a race that you'll learn from, and one for the keep pressing on to get the best out of it for your crew. For Cambridge, enjoying the last minute or so, making sure there's no mistakes, making sure that they execute right until the last stroke.
Yes, you saw from the helicopter view, Chiswick Bridge waiting just round this final bend, and this closing stretch of river from Barnesbridge to the finish can seem a long stretch of water for a losing crew. We've seen some drama in both races over the years here. Of course, most notably in the men's race. The women's race fairly new to this stretch of the river for the race, but well, today there is a gulf between the two, as there was last year. We wondered perhaps how much of that was due to the start last year, but I think Cambridge were much better on that occasion anyway, and certainly they're proving that this year, because that gap is now growing further still, and Oxford just have to dig in to make the margin of victory or defeat, as it will be for them, as small as possible. But it's significant. It's huge.
A significant distance, but still an impressive display of rowing from all of these women. Like Kath said, very difficult thing to do, but really bringing women's rowing to the forefront. And I think the next thing I'd like to see now is some more women's coaches on the bank as well. I believe Kathy might correct me here, but of the 16 crews from Oxford and Cambridge, lightweight, heavyweights, men and women, there's only one female coach, who's Jill Betts of the Oxford lightweight women. And that'll be the next thing for us to see, is some of these women moving up into the coaching roles and the leadership roles as well. Yeah,
sounds a good idea. Of course, the junior committee, the president, they get a taste of some of the leadership roles. Tricia herself was coaching the lightweights, and it's always encouraged that they go on to coach. But you're absolutely right. Across the sport, we want more women coaches.
Well, Sophie Shapter is showing no mercy and driving on her crew to the finish. It will be, as we have known since near the very start of this race, it will be Cambridge again. It is going to be Cambridge by a distance as wide as the Thames. And across the finish line, they come to a handsome victory in the 73rd women's boat race, and the celebrations begin. And broad smiles across exhausted faces. And Oxford will trail in. And it is so difficult for the beaten crew because you've given the same effort. It is just as hard. It seems harder now because you don't even have that elation, that joy to ease the pain. And they know they have been well beaten here today. Again, as Zoe was saying, they have given a great effort. They've lost by a huge margin, but they have given a great effort. They're just beaten by slightly stronger, slightly better, and certainly more experienced rowers as well in this Cambridge boat.
That's absolutely right. I think you have to look back on your boat race experience, win or lose, and take the positives from it, whatever happened.
Well, just hugs of consolation in the Oxford boat, and cheers from one crew to the other. And Oxford have to try and muster something, but it's all celebrated. Alice White in there. Again, winner last year, winner this year. And perhaps, as we said, well, the Oxford dominance came to an end last year. Perhaps Cambridge are beginning their own era. That's for Oxford to try and respond to and see if they can make improvements heading towards next year. But Cambridge wait under Chiswick Bridge, and then they'll head into the Mortlake Boat Club. But again, it's the contrast, isn't it? The contrast between the joy and the jubilation, and you do all that training for weeks and months, and perhaps more than that as well. They train over the summer and work towards this race, and Cambridge have it all, and Oxford in the women's boat race have nothing, and it must hurt now just drifting into land and thinking about what might have been. But a wonderful effort by Cambridge, and again the word dominant has been used, and that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like predicted, that Cambridge crew really did look incredibly impressive. And a great victory, ultimately. They've worked hard for it. You know, no matter what it looks like on paper, you can't actually win until you've got out there and done it. So you still need to perform on the day, and that was one of Cambridge's big things. They said they felt nervous, but prepared, and they wanted to not count the days until the race, but actually make every single day count, and looks like that's exactly what they've done here today.
Well, we'll get the official winning margin later, but it was very similar to last year's, I think, 11-length victory. And testimony to the returning athletes, but also to Rob Baker, the coach. As we've been talking, they've built a very good system at Cambridge, and they have a new boathouse, and they have that program which is bringing success in the women's crew and also in the men's. And we'll see if the Light Blues can repeat this success in the men's race. But that was it was one-sided, but again, that is down to the skill and the effort of Cambridge. And Oxford have a big gap to try and close next year. The moment the line was crossed,
Yeah, Kelsey.
they knew they had victory a long time before this, but closed out in some style. A very quick time, not as quick as the record time of last year. But again, the river perhaps not offering quite as much life.
Legs. Here we go.
Right to the finish.
Get ready.
Sophie Schapter driving them on from the cock seat.
Down.
And then they know their work is done and the celebrations can begin.
Yes.
And it is always just the cocks with the effort left to shout. Anyway, Claire Balding is down at the finish, and Claire, a one-sided race, but again, such an impressive performance from the Light Blues.
Oh, hugely impressive from Cambridge. And you think that 2 years ago they were out there nearly sinking on the course. To have turned themselves around, changed the whole system, come in here now with back-to-back wins for the first time since 1999, winning by approximately 20 seconds over the Oxford crew. And it's Cambridge's, you know, dominance really that was so impressive right from the start. They were steady, they were rhythmical, they looked together, they increased that margin, they were able to then take their own racing line, and they pushed on through all the way. 19 minutes and 10 seconds of huge physical effort, but it doesn't hurt nearly so much when you're winning it. Helen Glover and Catherine Granger alongside me. Helen, how do you sum up that race?
I mean, yeah, I think something that you touched on there, something that was so impressive was the fact that they gained that margin throughout the race. So they got the lead off the start, but they carried on, they just crept away, and that's why they ended up with such a big margin.
And Catherine, it was a better start for Oxford than last year. I mean, it wasn't as if they caught a crab or anything, but they just looked a little tentative.
I know, and it is a different crew from last year, apart from that one Alice that we talked about. But there must have been a little bit of nerves. It's a very different. Even Helen and I, we've never competed on this river when the stream is against you. It's a very difficult start to get right. So they would have tried a few times before. They wouldn't have a huge amount of experience on it. So there's a bit of nervousness knowing how bad it can go. But they did have a clean start. Both crews did well. But at this point in the race, this is when Oxford has the advantage. And when you're in a crew, when you've got the advantage of the river and yet your opposition's pulling away from you, mentally this is a tough time for Oxford.
Cambridge managing to get more than a length ahead meant that they could then take their own racing line and effectively cross over.
Yeah, absolutely. So from this point, they're allowed to choose where they go. They're no longer sort of designated to one side, and that's probably why they managed to keep creeping out. However, it's worth saying the standard of the Oxford crew, they look like a fantastic crew. So for Cambridge to have won by that much really highlights the quality of the women in both boats.
And Kath Bishop was saying it a bit in commentary, but Catherine, this goes back to Cambridge changing everything, the whole approach to women's rowing, building a new boathouse out in Ely so that the women could be incorporated and get the full benefit of the facilities out there that the men had been enjoying for so long.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the race has got bigger and bigger for the women's side, and they were very ambitious as a club and what they could achieve and how they would achieve it. As Kath was talking about, it was very much about not just the boat that you're in, but all your athletes around you. So as and when changes are made, you get that reaction. You get that reaction. They did it for each other. They did it for their coach. They did it for their physio that'll be there. They did it for everyone. And Oxford will have had that as well. But they were, Cambridge had just had what it took this year.
Well, they were cheered and roared every stroke of the way by their cox, Sophie Shapter. She's with Jason now.
Very much indeed, Claire. Yes, Tricia and Sophie alongside me. Now, I've seen some celebrations in my time doing this job, but those were just magical scenes coming off the water. What a blistering start, Trish.
Yeah, I mean, the flag went down and we were off, and before we knew it, we were 10 strokes in. I don't even remember it, to be honest.
Such a well-drilled outfit, aren't you, Sophie?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been doing the same thing over and over again for a month now, so, we knew we just needed to go out there and do the job.
It was a little overcast going out today, and we thought there might be a little bit of rain. Conditions perfect for the type of game plan you had today?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I noticed the wind at all. Even if it was sunny, I don't think it would have made a difference. So, yeah, perfect conditions for us.
Do you know what's amazing about you guys? We saw before the race as well that our camera's been following you, and you've looked so relaxed, so calm going into the race because you've got such an experienced crew, haven't you, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got two double world champion in the stroke seat, so, she's done a lot of races in her time. We've just tried to keep the banter going, and, that's been really working for us, and it paid off.
Great team spirit, we should say as well. What about Rob Baker as well? He's been remarkable, hasn't he?
Oh, Rob has been incredible this year, and I mean every year before as well. He's just, gotten everything right in terms of the training plan. Can't fault him, really.
He's an utterly brilliant coach, isn't he, Sophie?
Absolute legend, Rob, yeah.
Big party tonight, girls, by the way? Big party?
Huge party.
You better get ready because we've got the trophy presentation starting very shortly. Tricia and Sophie, I'll allow you to go back and celebrate now. There's some flossing going on by there as well. There's some dancing, flossing going on, which you guys have been doing as well. Amazing stuff. The swish, the floss, whatever it's called, it's looking good. Thank you very much indeed. Have a great day. Thank you very much indeed. Top stuff.
We saw their dancing skills yesterday. We see their celebratory dances now, the Cambridge crew. And actually, I think really reflecting there, when you've got a great coach, when you've got a coach that not only puts you through the right programme, but one that you want to impress, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, we always talk about trusting the programme, and half of that is trusting the coach. And you want to win for every single person in that boat, but wanting to win for your coach is crucial as well.
And looking at the scenes down there, you can see the tight, huddled group on the left of Oxford, who, as Cambridge sort of spread out and celebrate and share their joy, the Oxford crew tighten up and share the pain, because really it's the only way you can get over something like this is by being huddled tight together.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, you're spot on there. It's one of those really tough sports, one of those tough events within the sport, in that you win together and you lose together. It's a team sport. only you lot in that boat know exactly what that feels like to have crossed the line second or to have crossed that line first. It will be something that will bond them together for the rest of their lives, and it's heartbreaking to see. But in this race, they get to the start line knowing there can only be one winner and one loser.
Well, it looks to me like Jason has got with him a member of the Oxford crew. Jason?
What this means, and these are the hardest interviews to do, but I suppose you're up against it from the opening stages.
Yeah, we always knew from basically day one that it was going to be a tough year. You know, Cambridge assembled a really good crew, and we had a lot of people that learned to row at Oxford, myself included, and I'm crying now, but I'm actually really, really proud. I think we achieved way more than we thought we could do. If you saw us in September, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So I think from day one, we just went out and said we want to try to be better. And that's what we did all season, and that was the culmination of it. So, you know, sometimes in sports, it doesn't work out the way you want it to.
Very true, wonderful words, but you do have to also pay tribute to that Cambridge crew as well, because they are so experienced, aren't they?
Definitely. They were a really good crew, and it was an honor to get to race them, and yeah, it was a good race.
But as you say, your crew have done you proud.
Definitely.
Thank you very much indeed. I know it's hard, but thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Catherine Eriksson there, the Oxford president. You see the tears in her eyes, and it is just so much effort, and when you've lost it, you feel desolate. But this is really important, and the more people that watch the women's boat race, the more people that participate in it, enjoy it, then the better overall for women's rowing. But rowing on the river is one thing. Rowing across the Atlantic, an entirely different challenge. But on Thursday night, a new world record was set by Kiko Matthews. She rowed solo and unsupported across the Atlantic from Gran Canaria to Barbados in 49 days, beating the previous record by a week. Extraordinary, Catherine.
Oh, absolutely extraordinary. And not only is that record so sensational, but in 2009, she was diagnosed with Cushing's disease, which came from a brain tumour, which meant because of that, she got osteoporosis, she had muscle loss, she lost her memory. I mean, all these things happened. She decided to take on a challenge, which was not a small challenge, let's say, for any of us, fit and healthy, never mind in her position. And she wanted to prove to other people what was possible, especially to women, you know, really inspirational thing of things can be achieved. And she was also raising amazing amounts of money for King's College Hospital and a new intensive care wing. So she has just done more than anything that we could imagine doing right now.
We were talking about 19 minutes being a long time to row for. Imagine rowing for that length of time.
I know. That's 49 days.
Incredible.
It is amazing. And she said, I want to use my story to inspire women to challenge themselves. Well, Radzi is alongside two more Atlantic rowers.
I absolutely am indeed, Claire. Two members of the four oarsmen. We saw a few pictures of that there. How did that adventure start?
7 years ago, my mum sadly passed away in 2011, and at her funeral, me and a friend decided that we would undertake a challenge in her memory and want to raise funds and awareness for a charity of mine that she was a trustee for. So for me, that was one of the big incentives, one of the big pushes for that. In addition, we're raising money for spinal research in this challenge for one of Pete's friends, who sadly was partially paralysed as a result of a rugby accident. So looking for a big challenge, we happened upon the Atlantic Row, and it was never looking back from there, really.
When Catherine Granger and Helen Glover are impressed with you, you know you've done something that's incredible. How difficult was it?
Yeah, there are definitely some pretty brutal moments. We had a shift pattern of 2 hours on, 2 hours off for the whole 29 days. So looking back now, it's easy to think that it wasn't too bad, but it was definitely the hardest thing that we've ever done. But an amazing experience. And I wouldn't say I'd rush into doing it immediately, but certainly adventure's addictive. So yeah, it was a great experience.
Can we talk about the world record? What was it like finding out, first of all, that you got the world record, and secondly, that you completed it?
Truth is, we didn't know what the world record was until about 2 days out, so we didn't really know what we were going for. It was a race, we were there to win the race, but getting the world record was a great bonus. Yeah, arriving into Antigua and having friends and family there was fantastic, and after a hard-earned celebration, a couple of drinks and a bit of hot food, it was just really nice to suck it all up and take it in.
Well, what a moment that must have been, and what a moment it will be for the Cambridge crew, and I believe we're joining the Jason Mohammed with the women's presentation right now.
Yes, welcome to the presentation party. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our team. Welcome to Hanneke Smits, CEO of Newton Investment Management, Sir Harpal Kumar, CEO of Cancer Research UK, and the boat race company representative, Fergus Murison. Please give them a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. A very warm welcome to all three. Well, what a start today, ladies and gentlemen, then, here on the River Thames for the boat races. First of all, would you please welcome our runners-up, Oxford, ladies and gentlemen. Led by Renee Coulshine. President Catherine Eriksson. Juliette Perry. Alice Roberts. Morgan McGovern. Sarah Kushma, Abigail Killen, Beth Bridgman, and Jessica Buck. Ladies and gentlemen, our runners-up, Oxford. Fabulous to hear the Oxford supporters cheering them here. Wonderful competitors today. But ladies and gentlemen, what a resounding win for Cambridge! Led by Vice President Tricia Smith, ladies and gentlemen. Imogen Grant. Paula Wesselman. Taya Zabel. Kelsey Baralak. Keep that cheering coming, ladies and gentlemen. There are winners. Alice White. Team captain Miriam Goudet Buktatmi. Then we have Olivia Coffey. Big cheer for Olivia. At last, but certainly by no means least, Sophie Shapter the Cox, ladies and gentlemen, who's just done a wonderful job on live television in her interview as well. There's a future in broadcasting though, I think. I know you love broadcasting. And also joining us on stage, ladies and gentlemen, Rob Baker, the coach of Cambridge University. Hello, Rob. Okay. Before we do the trophy presentation, Miriam, if I can just ask you to step forward and just have a very quick chat, because as captain, you are going to be presented with the trophy, but you must be so, so proud, not only of your team here, your crew, but everybody who supported you.
Yeah, it's just an awesome squad, and there are so many people beyond everybody here, Rob, the senior committee, everybody. And I just want to say a big shout for Daphne, because she has been the president and Trisha was the vice president, and I'm just here like just to represent Daphne.
This is Daphne Martushenko, who's in the reserve. Couldn't get into this crew. Very well said. But also, I wouldn't mind a few words as well for Oxford, because on our live programme a short time ago, they paid tribute to you, a wonderful crew.
Really, but we could. This race is Oxford Cambridge, so it would be not possible without them. And it has been an awesome race. And thank you, Oxford. Woo!
And just before we get the fizz going and the trophy, you've won this before. How does this feel?
Every year is different. It was a new race, a new challenge, a new crew. It's the same joy. It was just awesome.
You have been wonderful, Miriam. Lovely to see you. Many congratulations. There's the trophy. I'm getting out of the way. Otherwise, I'm about to get covered in fizz. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well done.
And there is Daphne Martushenko. She was part of the Blondie crew. We understand they have won their race as well. So very, very strong start to the day for Cambridge.